the definition, a hip hop discussion. We've got some incredible panellists. I'm going to actually let them introduce themselves in a sec. But there was an official welcome to country earlier. I just wanted to do a little acknowledgement for myself and the panel, just to acknowledge the traditional landowners, the grounds that we meet on. I'd like to recognise their continuing connection to the land, water and culture, and we pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. So to get into today, we're going to be talking about lots of different topics, which is really cool, and a lot that are really close to my heart. I'm really excited to be moderating this panel. But what I wanted to do first is if everybody can just introduce themselves, and while you're introducing yourself and obviously talking a little bit about your background, just let everybody know, do you remember the first moment you fell in love with hip-hop as we go around? You can go first.
Cool. I started off. Before I begin, I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present and acknowledge that we're meeting on the unceded, stolen lands of the Wurundjeri people and the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nations, and pay my respects to any Aboriginal people in the room today as well. My name is Paul Gorrie. I'm a Gunai Kurni and Yorta man, and I've been around on the local scene for a while as like a, kind of observing, but kind of like committing to stuff, but also really trying to elevate music locally as well as more broadly. And I'm a DJ and producer and and a drummer as well. So I love hip hop, and when I fell in love with hip hop, I guess I started out with like hearing Tupac and Eazy-E and Ice Cube, but when I fell in love with it was when I first heard Yasin Bey, Mos Def, and some of you might know him, or all of you would, but that's me.
Hey everyone, my name is Raph, and I fell in love with hip hop. If you open your phone and check out my Instagram, I put a photo up there this morning. This will be the first time I ever witnessed hip hop, and if you go to Raph Boogie, you'll see me out there, and it's when I was 8, I went to the local Caulfield. You got that picture? I went to Caulfield Town Hall, and they used to have these, you could go down there to practice rap dancing. That's what they called it. There was already people breaking and stuff, but there was a rap dance class. And so I went down there in I was in grade 2. And there was, if you picture you walk in, and there's one dude up the front, and there's like 50, not 50, maybe there's like 50 to 100 kids to the lines, and everyone's just like, okay, do. And it was just that. It was just, it was crazy. There was just people. You remember that sort of stuff? It was just, yes, sir. There was rap dance classes. Rap dancing. Not breaking. Like, I'm doing, it was fucking weird. But that was it. So that was my first.
What year was this? Do you remember?
This was about 85. Wow. About 85, 80, yeah. So yeah, that was hilarious. Anyway, that was my first introduction to hip hop.
Just before you go, just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and your little background in hip hop, because it's quite interesting.
So I started doing the rap dancing, which didn't really eventuate into any dancing career. But then I guess what that did was plant a seed, So I didn't really have access to music or anything at that stage, but I remember being late primary school, or, grade 5, grade 6, and then hearing Grandmaster Flash and being like, fuck, this is what we were dancing to. So you make those links, those connections. Going into high school, I remember just having, probably Triple J was where you got rap from, and then coming from, because I grew up in Frankston, coming to Central Station Records. On a Friday night, you would come to the city, you would go to Central, then you would walk up to, what was the shop up on Swanson Street, Peril? Like up the top? You go to Collectors as well, but they didn't have much of a thing, and then you go up to where Jamal used to work, near where the lounge was. There's a record shop up there, so you'd just do this sort of weird triangle, and you wouldn't actually buy anything, but you just look at records. You just do heaps of that, and then you would, and then I just got started rapping and messing around and just being a kid.
And then later into photography as well, yes.
Yeah, then I started documenting hip-hop producers' home studios, and had 2 books that came out called Behind the Beat and Back to the Lab in 2005. Released the first book, all about hip-hop producers and where they made their music.
And probably a quite famous photo of Jay Dilla that I know a lot of people have that you took, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
As a photographer, I know this shit. So
yeah, the photos of Dilla were the last ones of him alive, and also the only ones really of him working and doing his practice. Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, thank you. And then just always been sort of part of it and kicking along. So yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Shit, I had no idea that was the case with those Dilla shots. That's crazy. Oh, yeah. That's amazing. My name is Mantra. I'm a MC, lyricist, songwriter, and hip-hop artist. I've been releasing and performing hip-hop music for about 13 years. And I think I know when I first fell in love with hip-hop, and it was early, it was young. I was probably about 5 or 6, and it was when my godbrother gave me, like, he was a bit older, so he was like the cool kid that I knew. He was probably the only kid that I knew, but he gave me a mixtape. He made me like a little cassette tape of just like mixed tracks, and it had 2 Public Enemy songs on it. And he like personally vouched for Public Enemy. He's like, you gotta listen to Public Enemy. It's important that you listen to Public Enemy. They got big political ideals, and they're making a difference. I was fucking 5 years old. I didn't know any of these words that he was saying. He was like 8 years old, so he didn't even really know what he was talking about either. But so I heard Public Enemy. I loved Public Enemy, and then the first CD that I bought, or convinced my mum to buy me, was Yo Bum Rush the Show by Public Enemy. Oh. Yeah. Oh. Thank you. You may well clap that. That's a cool first record to buy. But I think the second record I bought was the Sound of Music soundtrack. I'm pretty sure it was like legit that thing. So it's like I wasn't like just a cool kid. I was just a dumb kid. But yeah, that was it. And I think I dug it just because it was just exciting. They were swearing. They were full of energy and aggression even sometimes, just this passion and power in what they were doing. And so it was exciting to me. It was different to the other kinds of music I was listening to. It wasn't their political stuff that I was drawn to. It was just the sound of the music, but the sound of music. But yeah, they continue to be heroes of mine. And so later when I got more and more invested in hip hop as a culture and as a music, staying true to those political and social ideals was really, really important to me, and something I've tried to do in my music. So yeah, they set me on the right path, I think. Yeah. That's me. Oh, you got one, bro. You got one.
My name is, I used to be called Raceless. That was my MC name from a crew called Curse of Dialect. I changed my name recently to the Maltese Well Monster because...
Why not?
Well, when I was younger, my next door neighbor, I live in the West, in Sunshine, my next door neighbor, Somalian, and he goes, dude, you're not racist, you're raceless, man, because you're into hip-hop. And I took the name. But now, I changed it because I got more into, researching my own culture to represent that instead of perpetrating on another. So you got to sort of, get into your roots to represent you. You can't be perpetrating on other. But our crew is a multicultural crew of all different nationalities in it. We all grew up in the western suburbs. We were the first Australian hip-hop group to get a deal in the States in about 2004.
I read that yesterday. Yeah, amazing.
But our Mush Records, because our style of hip-hop is really out there, we wear costumes on stage. Everything is about racism, and the only reason I do hip-hop is to talk about that subject, because that's listening, like Mantra said, Public Enemy was Paris, X-Clan, all these other old school crews. I listened to that religiously as a kid, and all my friends, being from multicultural backgrounds, were all into the political hip-hop. So, I'd go to school and look at people and go, I wonder if that guy's a fucking racist motherfucker. I had identity problems, to be honest. As a kid, I did. I totally did. I was so into the hip hop thing that I hated who I was, basically. Like, fuck that. I'm not down with that. I'll do anything to disassociate myself from my own nationality. But then I thought, well, why not embrace it later? But when you're younger, a lot of kids, when I see kids like that now, like, I just think, dude, you got to be you, but you got to be anti-racism as hardcore as you can be, being you. Not like, I'm like you. That shit's some whack fucking other form of racism, basically. But anyway, our crew, we went on a tour to the States and people bugged out over our accents. They didn't know what to think. But the first time I listened to hip-hop was my kid in my class in grade 6 or year 7 showed me the Public Enemy, Takes the Nation to Millions album. And then I just kept getting more and more into it. Public Enemy. It is, yeah.
In, Melbourne Australian hip-hop at the time, in like 83, was Malcolm McLaren's Buffalo Girls. Even though, I'm not a big fan of how he sort of jumps on things, Malcolm McLaren, that is. Because, I was always about Supreme Team. That was the rappers that were on the track. And he had, Rocksteady Crew, he had Dondi, the graffiti artist, on there. And he had this sort of, like, it was a time capsule of New York from 83 in a video clip, I suppose. And not just the MCs, because there wasn't really MCs really in 83 yet, really. Because it was all Sugar Hill Gang and hip-hop, you don't stop, nice and light sort of party-style rhyming. And everyone was rapping in American accents. And that's just how it was. And that video clip really spawned... That and Herbie Hancock, Rocket, fuck, blew my mind, man. That breakdown, Herbie Hancock and the guys cutting. I still get the rhythm. It's here forever. It's here forever. I beat that in the heart. And I'm getting chills now just thinking about it, I remember watching TV shows, award ceremonies of the time, the big, whatever it was, Academy Award, not Academy Award, the music awards, American music. And, they were on there doing it live with B-boys. And I suppose, that started everything off for me. Then I started getting into the records. When I started first scratching, I never had a Technics 1200s. I had a Sanyo 3-in-1 system, which is a cassette radio and a turntable, belt drive. And I didn't even know about slip mats. No one told me about slip mats. Because if you're from my era, the slip mats were that big chunky rubber bit. Yeah, you can't cut on that, let me tell you. Forget about it. And I had world famous Supreme Team, hey DJ, what you better hear that song. And I cheese grated the crap out of the bottom of that. Like, it's just gone. I was scratching, the vinyl to the metal and just ripped off the whole groove off the bottom. No more instrumental. Oh well, but that's how it was. It was early days. There was no rule book. Experimental, and I used to go to Tanny Electronics and try to find a mixer that I could afford because I couldn't afford a bloody meat pie back then. And got this mixer, this 2-channel mixer, turned it sideways, and sort of made it work. And I jammed up all the buttons on my the first gig I got was on the 3-in-1 system. I had this group I was working with called the Island Boys, which is funny enough, they were sort of a copy of the Jungle Brothers. I'm not going to lie. Well, we were the Island Boys, man, with one Italian. Just saying. And, we were on that tip hard, and I got the gig. They came to my bedroom, and I jammed, you got the stereo, you got the auxiliary, you got the phono, whatever, CD. I jammed up the 4 buttons so one button would stick out with a pen, like the inside of a pen, and that button was my transformer button. So I was like, all the time. That's how I got my first gig. So from there, sampler, my brother got me a Tascam Porto 5, it was a Porto 4-track, and I just learned how to layer. I wasn't really a producer really per se, I was just trying to do some stuff, and that's it. So to this day, to whatever my history is, later on, that's where it started.
Amazing, thank you. Risky.
Hi, my name is Ms. Rizk. I'm a DJ, radio broadcaster, and I like to throw parties and events. That's what I've been doing since 2001. Hip-hop, I guess, growing up in the 80s and 90s with older siblings, you get introduced to different kinds of things. So I grew up watching like breaking and breakdance, and then later you learn that wasn't breakdancing at all. It's questionable. But I grew up watching that, but one of my distinct memories was being in an art class in grade 2 and a friend bringing a cassette tape and playing NWA's Fuck the Police. was like, ooh, that's naughty, but that's good. But I really fell in love with hip hop when a neighbor played me Tribe Called Quest's Hot Sex on the Platter. That beat was totally fire. So I guess that track spawned listening to more music off radio, recording, hip hop tracks from the radio on a cassette player. I'd do that a lot, stay up a lot, just recording Rick D's Top 40, and you'd stop when there was a crap song, but just record the good ones. So, that's what was happening. And then, obviously, one of the biggest things that, for me, when falling in love with hip-hop and becoming almost obsessive, was the Soulquarian era. There was nothing better than that era for me. So Mos Def, Talib, Common, Jill, Erica, Bilal, like all of that entire world. And even before then, watching NBA Jam Session, the soundtrack was dope. So culturally, it was all, in the 90s, it was all hip-hop, dancing, and a mix of New Jack, R&B, and hip-hop. And it's very addictive and colourful, and that's why I'm here today.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yo, I go by the name of Krown, also known as Military Mind. And first time I fell in love with hip-hop was, I think it was one track, and I kind of went online and I looked at the lyrics, and then I was like, whoa, this guy's actually storytelling. And then one big track that kind of got to me the most was Big L, Put It On. And then when I first heard that one, I was like, whoa, that's a heck of a beat. And then the way he was just rapping on it, kind of made me go in my room and like, man, this thing is more than music. It was more like the way you dress, the way you talk, the way you walk. And then just never changed. I went back to school. I was still in high school. It wasn't too long ago, actually. It was like 2012, 2011. Went back to school, and then it was just a whole naughty Krown. Like, that was just like, fuck this world. Like, I don't have to be in class all day. And then we started wagging, listening to like mad albums, Illmatic. And I remember I used to live almost in the countryside back in Perth. It was like an hour, 5 minutes to get to school or something like that. And I would like, the first moment I get on the train, I just press Ready to Die from the start until I get off the train, and it's like almost done, and then cool. On the way back is like Illmatic. I did that every day. I'll never get tired of it. And then one other song that stood out to me the most, like that kind of made me shift my voice and sort of made me, talk about my life and how I feel, was Everyday Struggle by Biggie. That song, there was just something about it, especially the pain in his voice. You can almost hear it, like you take away the words and just the voice itself. And then I remember one time we had this thing called Audacity. Most people know it. It's like this shitty recording program. And then we plugged in the headphones that came with a mic. And then me and my cousin were like, oh, we need a rap name, bro. What should we name it? And there was this particular gun in a video game called MP40. It's more lethal than AK-47. We're like, hey, bro, MP40 is dope. MP40s, here we go now. MP40s, here we are now. And then my cousin ditched me because he's not a rapper. He's like, hey, bro, I got to go play football. Good luck, yeah? I'm like, hey, man, we got a group here, man. What are you doing? And then from there, I just, I was still like developing my writing stuff. But I was always a good writer. Like, I've been writing since a little kid. And I always wanted to express through writing. I found it like you could go like, there's no one stopping you from writing. So from there, it was just me. I was just sharpening the pen, wrote every day, wrote this and wrote that. And then, I got more into it, started downloading albums on Pirate Bay, and then just like loaded up my phone and just listened. Nas was a big influence for me, like a very big influence. 50 Cent, big one as well, coming from Africa, because I moved to Australia end of 2009. And the years before that, I was just playing like, you wouldn't call it hip-hop in my sense, because I reference hip-hop like to the old school cats, like the ones that actually, brought it to the golden age. But yeah, here I am, being a part of this. Like, I feel like I'm on the right track. And this guy right here, Mantra, actually told me how to count bars. I didn't know how to count bars. And this was like 2014, 2015. And I used to write heaps, like I would write it so much, like da-da-da-da-da-da, but there's no structure. And then Mantra was like, hey, do it like this, you know, break it down. And then, yeah, been improving ever since. Yeah, that's it about me.
Thank you. It's really interesting to hear a lot of familiarity in some of your stories in terms of my own as well. So, and I think people in the audience would have very similar stories in terms of the artists that we love and why it impacted us in those times. I just wanted to throw this out. This is kind of for anyone that wants to comment on this, and hopefully the discussion can kind of go from here. But how do you think, I guess, hip-hop has changed during your involvement, and some of it's been decades, I guess, as a culture, and what are the challenges that it's faced in the past and, I guess, moving into the future?
The main challenge for us back then was actually being able to record a song. It was you couldn't record. You could have a 4-track for sure, but that wasn't something you could just give. You could just make a recording of that to give to someone on a tape, but you couldn't make a CD. You could, if you wanted to record something that you wanted to press onto record, it would cost you. If you were going to take a session somewhere, it would be maybe $500 a day. And when we were 15, when we were maybe 14, 15, making our first recordings, it was just impossible. So I think that we had MIDI back then. So that MIDI was the interface that linked up all your samplers and stuff, and that was cool. But you still needed to be able to record them, and that was really, really. So the guys that were before, just a little bit older than me, they were recording in studios, you know, AKA Brothers, and they were just the techniques were just wild, you know, like sound engineers just doing this to them, like I would just like leave, you know. And I was just like, man, that's horrible, you know. But yeah, so I think for the most part, being able to grow with technology has been a really, really positive thing for hip hop artists and just artists in general.
I was going to say that I had to get 95 was our first cassette, and I had to get a doll loan off the doll to pay for the studio time. We found a studio, and we just went in there. We didn't even know. We just had loops in our head of samples we wanted to use. We were like, oh, could you loop that? You know, we didn't have, this is before, like I got into Fruity Loops later, you know, but before that it was like, oh, there's this little bit on this record, you know, could you please do that? And then suddenly the bill comes like $300 and you've just got one loop and a beat. And you got to keep going in, and every 2 weeks I got, you know, tried to say, we'd all get doll loans, you know, just to, that's how hard it was. But hip hop today, I think, I'm hoping when I hear people like Kendrick Lamar come out with the conscious stuff, that's a good thing to see, because I'm not necessarily down with like stuff that doesn't say anything, because I think hip hop's always been about opening people's minds up, you know. So that's one thing I reckon needs to happen more, like more spotlight on the conscious hip hop artists.
Yep. Did you have a comment there?
I agree with that, but more on the conscious. Of definitely on that tip. Yeah. But what's changed is that hip hop's become the most popular music out there. That's what's changed.
Actually, that was something I was going to comment on, because I think when most of us were growing up, a lot of people weren't listening to hip hop. I know I was one of the only people in high school that liked hip hop. Everyone was into grunge and all that sort of stuff in the 90s. That's definitely changed, hasn't it?
Well, the place where we are now is independent rock. There was no hip hop before. I mean, I was one of some of the first groups that was playing on this stage that was sort of hip hoppy. So it's come a long way. And then no one was getting signed or anything. You had to be independent because there was no one else that was going to sign you up. They just went into it. You know, this is before Triple J. No one was playing hip hop. Right. You know, Raph was on radio. You know, he knew some people. You know, we knew some similar people, and we were lucky if someone played our track. But that wasn't enough to make, you know, a living by any means. Now it's an industry.
Yeah.
You know, and even with my group, you know, 1200s. You know, when they did their thing, I mean, we were independent through a distribution through Sony, and I think we were one of the last deals that went through that weren't even taking your merch money. After me, everyone was like, oh yeah, they took our merch money, man, we can't sell our own t-shirts. I mean, I don't even know how you even meant to make a living. They were just squeezing you for every cent. And, you know, I remember being at I think it was Ice Cube and Cypress Hill, and Mr. Kadinsky, Mushroom came up to me. How are you, Pezza? Real, like a rock dog, motherfuckers. And all due respect, but and that's how it was. They didn't get it. Like, you gotta scratch, you gotta rap, you gotta, nothing live, mate. I don't get it. That's how it was. And I said to him, listen, I think it's gonna blow up. At that
I think
concert.
1200 Techniques for a lot of people I know for myself personally was the first introduction to Australian hip hop for myself, and I think a lot of people would be the same. It sounded international to me, and it gave a lot of respect to the scene, and I know influenced a whole generation of artists. I don't even know if you guys are aware of the huge influence that it had.
It was just fun. We weren't trying to do anything. I didn't even know what I was trying to do. I wasn't even a producer. I just went in there like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I remember being on the talking to one of the Sony cats, and they go, "Oh, Peril, mate, there's no singles on this record. That's shit." Trying to downplay me. I go, "Get the fuck out of here." I said, "There's at least 5. All right, don't tell me my business." And that's what got me through my blind belief in myself. I didn't really know what I was doing, and I wasn't the greatest producer. I just did what I did. There's way better producers than me. But if you believe in yourself enough, you can make something happen. And that was, to me, we might have put a bit of spotlight on what happened later on with people getting signed, and people going, "Oh, there is some something in this."
Something in this.
Yeah, that's all I can say.
Yeah. Mantra, did you have a comment on that?
Oh yeah, just kind of on that, like dealing with people, I guess, in those positions of power or authority, maybe in the music industry. That was something that became clear to me during my time as an artist. Was like often like one of the challenges was kind of trying to deal with people on a business level and take your music to people and get your music moving through channels that were essentially controlled by people that just had no idea what hip hop was.
No.
And had no experience with hip hop. I remember hearing, like people from radio stations would give them tracks and they'd come back with hip hop related feedback, which was like, I don't it was like, I don't think our audience needs any more hip hop songs on this type of tip or this type of subject matter or whatever. And so it was kind of funny hearing that, like from people who were completely operating outside of the world of hip hop, give this really kind of, I guess, influential feedback, and making these decisions based on hip hop and a hip hop audience, not really knowing who the hip hop audience was or what hip hop was about. I think that was a big challenge. Yeah,
that's exactly how it was. I remember being they were going to re-sign 1200 Techniques' third album. And they wanted to make me Black Eyed Peas. No, that's real.
Which version of Black Eyed Peas?
Probably the worst. Probably the worst. Think of the worst one, and then
Pre-Fergie, post-Fergie.
pre-Fergie would have been
I
alright.
need answers.
No, it was after Fergie.
Yeah.
They were going to get nothing against
Female vocalist.
a
or-
female
yeah.
vocalist, and it was like, "Oh, you took it up to here, Peril. Now we're going to take over." From a thing that I birthed myself, didn't really know what I was doing, and all of a sudden they were just going to like jump in and take over the whole show. And I'm eating my $45 steak. They're trying to butter me up. Here, he wants some potatoes, Peril. Get them. Right, gravy, whatever you want to give. And I remember JD from Sony. It was one of the first sort of judges on The Voice. I know it's not related, it's commercial, but that guy ended up committing suicide. I don't know what he committed suicide about, but his girlfriend, this, that, the other was bad. And he tried to tell me he was from England in the garage scene. And he tried to tell me in a week that he'd been in Australia all about Australian hip hop. Save it,
They know,
mate.
yeah.
Just save it.
Yeah. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, I always have comments on challenging things. I think hip hop itself, the culture, the essence of it, cool and positive. So unfortunately, it is a really heavy loaded question, but access for women and the intersections can be difficult. And it's not because our male friends that we know aren't welcoming. When you're close enough, we're cool. It's more the bigger picture that's frightening, so...
Actually walking into a room that's literally 150 men.
Absolutely, for some.
That's how it was. That's
You know,
it was.
and that's
I know
how
when
it was,
I
that's
started
how it
shooting, When I
is,
started
you know.
shooting in the scene, that's what it was like. And I was welcomed with open arms granted with all the people that I met, but if you don't have that personality type, that's incredibly intimidating.
Yeah, but absolutely. And I look at the commercial charts, and I don't know if anyone's noticed this. Have you noticed there's always only one queen of hip hop at a time? Yeah? We had Missy Elliott. She's, bless her, still around. Amazing. But for the women, there's only one. We had Nicki Minaj 2 years ago. Now it's Cardi B. I'm wondering who's next in line. It's almost like the media machine can only pick and choose, and they pit them, and there's beef, and it's bizarre, you know. And of course, it's the companies. This is the thing, and that's why when people say I love hip hop, and then you play Yassine Bey or Common, like, what is this shit? And then they play me some, you know, I don't know, little something or the other, and you know, that is hip hop. And to me, it's like, well, yes and no. Again, hip-hop is a voice for the people and the young people. As a DJ, I have to keep up with music. And there are some times where I will play trap, Travis Scott, and people get rowdy. And that's cool, and that serves its purpose. It's fun. But that is not making anyone clever. That's not making anyone open-minded. That's allowing people to have fun, and there is nothing wrong with fun. You know? So it's a language that speaks to different people at different times, depending on your energy. But to blanket everything we listen to with this is hip-hop is wrong. I believe people need to understand the essence, the knowledge, and understand what is what. And that can be challenging, yeah?
I mean, I was going to say, on that, we made our hip-hop as weird as possible. We sample Chinese music, we sample classical music, we go to the suburbs of Melbourne where different nationalities live and find the music and sample it. We tried everything to get noticed. And when we got our deal in America, it was because we were so far out that our style was like original to them. Like we at first were like, maybe we should do a jazzy hip hop style. This is in the 90s. Maybe we should do this and that. Now let's do something completely weird and then send it to America and try and get hooked up. And it worked. We got the deal in, you know, I was bugging out. I'm like, I'm living here in Sunshine, and there's a dude in LA going, Sunshine sounds really nice. And like, I'm on the phone to him, and he's like, it sounds like LA. I'm like, it's not like LA. But when we got our deal, just to say that our methodology in doing it was like, we're a multicultural crew as well as being as weird as possible, and like hip hop artists need to think globally. Not like, oh, I'm listening to Triple J, I gotta imitate this dude, I gotta imitate that dude. No, hip hop's always been about coming up with a new style. Like in the golden age, it was always about, I'll be innovative on this tip, I'll be innovative on that. Let's do something where any hip-hop artist, the more original you are and unique you are, the more you'll stand out and get out of this situation.
Can I just speak? I'd love to speak specifically on that because when I was just starting to step into the scene and starting to, like, I didn't really know Australian hip-hop existed until I started making it, like, which was probably my own bad, but I just didn't have access to it. No one at my school was down with it. No one was really speaking about it in my world. And so the only way that I found out about it was once I'd been rapping for a while and going out and like finding the places I could go to rap and then meeting people and seeing people perform. So that was like, it was incredible seeing like 1,200 techniques and stuff representing on a grand scale, because it was like, oh, cool, there's people really doing this. But I remember seeing Curse, and that was a big moment. I was saying this to Adam before. Seeing Curse, and I'm pretty sure it was here that I saw you for the first time. I mean, all of our fucking gigs were here. So it was probably here. But, you know, and we performed together a number of times, you know, from then on. But seeing Curse perform for the first time was really good and positive for me, because it really sent that message home of like, yo, there's no one way that you have to do this. Like, there's absolutely nothing like dictating the way that you express yourself, the way that you interpret this culture and this music. And in fact, you kind of owe it to yourself and the culture to do something that is different and is yours. And so that was really cool. I mean, I was seeing these motherfuckers in crazy costumes, like scaling the building from the inside, and
they were out there
throwing stuff into the crowd and like rapping at all sorts of different tempos and in different languages and in different accents. I couldn't believe it, man. It was amazing, and I really dug that. And it reminded me, yeah, there's a million ways that you can go. But I feel like, another thing we were talking about, and I'd love to get your vibe on this, Krown, as a younger hip-hop artist, and I feel like with maybe the opportunities that are out there for you now as a young artist, and the kind of pathways that you can see into the industry, but coupled with, I guess, the kind of pressure on you as an artist to be on social media, constantly like promoting yourself, constantly creating new content, and kind of chasing, I guess, what's regarded as like a level of success. Do you feel like that puts pressure on you to be more maybe like within certain parameters, or do you feel like you can still kind of represent yourself?
Definitely. First, the biggest pressure comes from being in an age where you can actually make music and put it out. I was just having this conversation the other day with my homie. I was like, bro, imagine, the time Nas, Mobb Deep, Rakim, all of them weren't releasing. Imagine they lived in a time like this. What would they do with such, with such luckiness? Because back then you had to have a label. You had to have, like he was saying, to even just get a CD or like a press was hard. But now you can get a mic from like Store DJ for like 200 and a computer and go to your house and it'll sound quality as hell, That's the biggest pressure for me. Like, I live in such a time like this, and I ask myself, hey, if all the greats, if all the cats that made you do this, like, what would they say now? What would they do now? What would they be releasing? That's the biggest pressure. And then there's also pressure of you have to tick off all of these stuff, and, all of these stuff don't exist. Like, social media, life that doesn't really resonate with your real. That's another pressure, because you have to keep it real, but also have to not keep it real to survive in the social media world. You know what I mean? And then from a younger person point of view, there's also that, man, Nas made Illmatic when he was 20 or 19 or this, and I'm getting older, so there's that pressure like, yo, you got to drop something. You got to drop a Ready to Die, something like that. Because as the time goes, you just realize, hey, man, like, it's just you and the microphone or you and the world kind of thing. But we live in an age where, it's kind of weird. The value of what hip-hop is has been so lost, because it went from an actual culture kind of thing to money, Like, I look around me and I see hip-hop sold everything. Like, if you take out hip-hop in certain places, certain things wouldn't exist. Like Timberlands, for example, went from work shoes. People are wearing work shoes. If Timberland didn't exist as a hip-hop thing, or if hip-hop didn't exist, Timberlands wouldn't exist. And all these brands are now using hip-hop as, a way to sell or a way to do this. But for other people, it hurts, Like, it's bigger than what it's being portrayed. And especially coming in at a time like, for me, I took it serious at a time when it was all this stuff happening, like the jerk scene or Dougie. I came in at that time, and it was such a bad time to enter,
Totally.
But yeah, there's many challenges in hip-hop. I hope I answered your question, but yeah.
I'd just like to say that I agree 100% with what Rizk is saying, and I think, hip-hop's changing, but not fast enough, and we need to be more inclusive of our queer, trans, and intersectional feminists that are making music now, that are making hype, really cool and new and experimental hip-hop that should be listened to on the daily.
Shout out to Risky too, because she's one of the, forefront women that are actually putting on nights to showcase these women, and that's really important as well, actually, to have the spaces for these women to grow and learn how to perform and get their skills in that regard as well. So shout out to you, Risky, for doing that, so providing that space.
Risky.
There was only one woman that was very poignant now in our day, and that was DJ Chrissy. She was a DJ. She wasn't an MC. She went in the DMC, I think it was it 1989, 90, something like that. And it was a boys' club. Yeah. I remember being at clubs with 150 people with one mic going over everyone's head, and they were all like, yeah, rapping this and doing. Everyone would take a verse. You wouldn't want to be a girl there, man. I wouldn't want to be a female there, man. You'd be like looking like meat. Yeah, like
it's still very tricky. I know I host a radio show, and Sosie, she's my co-host, and we talk about these issues all the time. It can be incredibly challenging listening to, like, we play a lot of current music as well, and just with the trap stuff that's coming through now, we absolutely love that stuff. But lyrically, it can be really challenging. It puts females in a certain light, and it's often not very flattering for
Well,
us.
it's very, well, not to be rude, it's very
Yeah.
sexual, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's
Yeah.
not,
It's
it's not
either
about the content, is it?
hypersexual-
Am I wrong?
Sure, but
Yeah.
you know, I'm sure if
more
someone
though.
played "Ain't No Fun" by Snoop the
Yeah.
instrumental, me and Michelle could rap the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Like,
amazing.
and it is
No, it
really
is, and it's-
derogatory,
it- yeah,
but
and
it's been made and created. I mean, Snoop wrote that with Corrupt and Dads, and I love it so much. And
Me
you
too.
listen to it and you go, "Oh, it's foul," but sometimes you need to switch your ear off. It's like, that's a dope rhyme, it's a dope lyric, and it's fun. And you can't take everything to heart. And I think these days, with a lot of movements and feminism, I mean, people are really, really sensitive, and I think you need to tackle this topic really. Are you a hip-hop listener, a fan of hip-hop, or are you someone that just is upset about everything? Because Snoop Dogg has never raped a woman. These deep people that rap these things, Snoop Dogg is the nicest man I've ever met in my life. And I've met a lot of hip-hop artists. He's an absolute gentleman. So I guess people need to look at hip-hop and music sometimes like storytelling and like film. Not everything you see or hear is legitimate and represents that person 100%, you know.
I guess
Don't-
there's
don't you
that, and
think that-
oh, sorry.
I was just going to say that once you separate the entertainment from the person, it's mainly just entertainment.
Yeah.
Unless you're talking about some conscious people. When I worked out that Snoop Dogg was not real, I was like, oh, cool, he's not shooting people. Okay, cool. I'll just enjoy it for the music, you know? But in the start, when you first say, oh, geez, these guys are real gangsters, it's like, no, that is not happening. It's just, for the most part, it's just entertainment. It's just like chucking on a movie. So
Storytelling.
it just depends what type of movie you want to watch.
I guess there's two sides to that, I guess, to play devil's advocate, because I 100% have felt this for 90% of my life. And as I get older, and I guess I'm seeing a increase in what I see is more derogatory, because I feel like we've moved so far from what happened in the early 90s just as a society, then that stuff is not changing. And I feel, at what point do we actually just kind of go, why are we still viewing women this way? Why are we still viewing the queer community this way? So that's just my comment on that. And I don't have the answers, and I'm not saying I'm not the person to change this, but as a comment, it'd be good to see it move.
My wife listens to more derogatory rap than me. I don't like it. I don't play it in the house. She bangs it.
I'm the same.
And I'm
I'm
like,
just saying it can
yeah.
get challenging.
100%.
Sorry, I just want to add to that. That is absolutely true what you're both saying. But has anyone ever noticed how it's always, when it comes to something created by black people, it gets crucified way before a genre
Yeah, it
or
does
a
when it's
topic by a white
outside.
person?
When it's outside, 100%.
And it's really noticeable, you know, and it's really, you know, yeah, it's really bizarre that this conversation happens and people talk about it and people want to dissect it, but it
I
is
think
in
that's
fact
completely true when it's a
entertainment.
criticism outside of hip hop, and I would say they don't understand the culture, they don't understand the history. Absolutely, I guess as someone inside it that have seen it now I've just turned 40, it can get a little bit.
It's like every time
draining.
someone starts a petition to ban an MC, but it's like, where are your petitions to ban the rock guys and all the
100%.
metal guys?
I've
and
been
all
on the
folk
radio
and those
for
guys
that,
have done
exactly.
some really messed up
100 I
stuff.
completely
What
agree.
about?
It's
Sorry.
bizarre. No, sorry, go on, Paul.
100%.
So I was having this yarn with someone the other week because I was like, why the fuck is Tyler, the Creator, not allowed to come in here? But then like Eminem just toured and he's talked about beating up his wife,
Killing his wife.
killing his wife for a whole like 2 albums or something like
He
that.
won a Grammy for that album too.
Yeah,
That was
so it's like
that was the album of
that
the year.
shit's bullshit. So yeah, but then back on what you were saying, like rock music and I guess white people music is just as fucked. But we can't comment on black people music when we're not from that cultural group and we're not the ones that are living those lives. That's what my
The corporates have taken hip hop from us. That's the thing. They own it. They run it. They can have a girl wearing whatever they want, and if they can dumb her down, not to say too many smart things, they will. And the guys, they want all the guys to like beat each other up and be gangsters. We can't all be gangsters. You know what I mean? Not everyone's meant to be like that. So sometimes you sort of like you look at yourself and you're masculine, you know, like how masculine you are, and you can overdo it. You know, you can talk a whole lot of crap about that and get away with it these days. Well, I suppose in my day you couldn't talk that. You had to talk the talk and walk the walk.
Yes.
That was the difference.
I see what you're saying.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Raph.
Yeah, that's actually true because the scene was so small. If we're talking about a Melbourne hip hop scene, if you came out and were talking shit, people would actually test you on it and say, "Hey, dude." That people took it personally, you know, like if you are bringing it, we will bring it, you know. So I was like, oh shit, I gotta. So it made you more conscious about what you were actually
What you're actually
saying,
putting
and
out,
if you were actually ready to bring beef or not. Interesting.
Well, we've just,
interesting.
sorry, we've only got a few minutes left, so I just wanted to ask one more question. I guess in terms of where Australia or Melbourne hip hop and Australian hip hop is on the global scale, we've really struggled, I guess, to kind of penetrate the global market. Where do you think, or what do you think needs to happen for us to have a standalone voice that can actually kind of be its own thing on in a global kind of stage?
I think Melbourne's on fire at the moment, not necessarily just for hip hop, but I don't know. I don't look at hip hop as just a specific sound. For me, hip hop is a root and then the tree that sprouts. So with acts like Hiatus Coyote popping off, with acts like Remy, K-Eat, to me, that's all hip hop.
100%.
Right? And I think Melbourne is at an amazing place right now, and it is thriving with so much talent that I think people are looking to Melbourne. Giles Peterson from BBC is recording an album with Melbourne artists as we speak. And I think what needs to happen to push this along is people to stop talking shit and actually put their mouths and money where they're saying that they're going to put it, and actually support and nourish the venues, the artists, coming out, supporting the open mic nights, sharing people's Bandcamps, SoundClouds. It's so easy. While you're eating a sandwich, share some things. And I think the most important thing is community, because that's what hip-hop began with. That's the seed of hip-hop. So we just need to nourish that seed and watch the plant grow. And I think even, there's so much music I don't vibe with. As a radio host, people send me stuff and I'm like, wow, you don't listen to my show at all because what you've sent me is not good. But instead of deleting it, I just forward it to a radio host that would vibe with that, because that's not my world, but they deserve a shot, and I'm sure someone's going to love that stuff. I may not, but there's other people out there. So I think nourishment, community, and actually stepping up is what we need to do. Instead of just talking about it, we talk too much. You rap about it, but just do it.
Exactly. I was just
do
going
it.
I think back in the 90s and even today, there was a lot of division between types of hip hop. You had like the Aussie hip hop, which is straight up Anglo culture. And then you had, like, when I first heard Aussie hip hop, I'm hearing this guy, I'm rapping on the mic and I'm in a barbecue. And I went, I can't relate to that. My neighbours are like different nationalities. It seemed weird to me. Then you have the kids doing the, like, fuck, I'll swim in the most smish cunts, you know, like the woggy stuff, which is like my family background. Yeah. So you had that, and everyone's in different divisions. And we were talking about this earlier. There was this thing called the Culture of Kings. It was an Aussie hip hop launch a couple back in the day, and there was a Vietnamese kid, happened to be Vietnamese kid rapping in an Aussie accent, and this guy was standing there going, "Get off! We want Aussie hip hop!" And I go, "Pardon? This is Aussie hip hop, man. What are you talking about?" "No, Aussie hip hop," meaning white dudes
white
rapping.
Australian.
And it's weird because the reason why Australian hip hop hasn't gone further is because people keep categorizing it, even subconsciously, on racial terms, right?
Great point.
Subconsciously. So my neighbor who was Somali and couldn't relate to that dude. You know, so, but it's all changed now, and like a lot of dudes coming up can be themselves. They don't have to be representing fucking colonial fucking hip hop, right? In their head, right? They can be from an indigenous background, can be from an African background, or Asian, or European, or whatever. It doesn't matter what you look like, but as long as you're being you and you're representing Australia from a conscious point of view, that will make hip hop progress. Not like, you know, one Australian culture's mad diverse. How can you like say that's one sound? You know, now people are coming up and they're representing it, and it's getting bigger. It's getting bigger because people are seeing the diversity of where we live.
We're definitely on the cusp of something very exciting happening.
We all hang out and live together. We all
100%.
represent hip hop like that.
It can happen now.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, I feel like we're probably closer to seeing the hip hop community that we really fell in love with, and we really like kind of wanted to be a part of. We're seeing that more accurately represented on a national stage now. For me, like, you know, hip hop was definitely never about a bunch of fucking white kids hanging out together. Even the community that I grew up in, but also the hip hop community that I moved into, it was never just white people, you know. It was people that looked like everybody, yeah. So and it was men and women. So I think it's important to make sure that that. Well, I guess it's kind of naturally happening. Maybe it's not happening fast enough, but it's just good to see that that's being represented on a national stage now. And I think a lot of that is due to the fact that music artists and people around those artists have more power in their hands independently and individually now, whereas before it was maybe more reliant on radio play, it was more reliant on having a label behind you, and those people making those decisions probably were looking at it like it needed to be white kids at a barbecue, or, you know, people that related to their audience en masse as white Australians, whereas now it's like, nah, man, you can represent who you are, and you can take your music directly to the people. And so hopefully we can start bypassing all of those entities that we were talking about before who really don't understand hip-hop, don't understand it on a community level or a musical level, and we can take it straight to people that really fucking understand it. And I think that's starting to happen now, which is cool. Why you got artists like Remy and Kai and Hiatus just going straight over the top of those people and taking it to people who, these massive audiences that appreciate it.
And I think... Sorry, man. You can go. I think it's all great points that you guys have said. But the way I look at it is like, you know, Melbourne is so like full of potential. But the problem is, as a nation of hip hop, is we look out too much. We're following too much. I would say, like, following might be the wrong term, but just when I analyzed it, it was too much looking outside instead of inside. And the moment people started looking inside instead of looking to America, UK, all of this for inspirations or examples, we started finding that here, they were looking from there to here, you know what I mean? And if we keep looking outside too long, they might be taking some gold from us. And that can be in terms of artists or some little ingredients that we might have. But also, I think there's a limitation when there's a tag such as Aussie hip hop.
Completely agree. Yeah. I think everyone would agree with that.
Yeah, it just kind of limits it. And it should just be hip hop coming from Australia.
That's it. Or so-called Australia, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When there's a Aussie hip hop, you kind of have to analyze yourself. Is it the accent? Do I have to fit the accent? Yeah. Or do I have to talk about me drinking 1,000 beers in one day? You know what I mean? not being, you know, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know which box it is that I tick off when I'm rapping. So I just say, hey, man, like, I'm in Australia, and that's where I'm making hip-hop. So if Aussie hip-hop is a tag that goes behind my back, that's cool, I'll take it. But in general, I think we got such a big... The whole world is looking at us, and it's not going to stop looking at us unless we stop looking at us. That's how I look at it, you know what I mean?
Great comment. I think most people would agree that Aussie hip-hop or Oz hip-hop tag has always been kind of negative, and I feel like we're starting to shake it finally. It's taken a long time, but yeah. Does anyone else want to have a comment in terms of where we're going?
One thing I would add to that is I just think I think the stigma or the label of Oz hip hop really limited a bunch of artists too, because I think they never strove for being the kind of creative, original, unique artist they could be, because they felt like they had to fit within the Australian hip-hop mold, or that Oz hip-hop or being from Australia as a hip-hop artist meant a certain thing. I think it stunted a lot of people's growth. A bunch of artists could have been doing some amazing things and ended up sounding like another one of those acts, you know?
What was the question again?
Just in terms of where we're going in the future and looking to create a more global kind of sound.
I reckon where we can go in the future is just supporting more female, trans and queer, black and brown artists and that are making hip hop. That's what I reckon.
Yeah, 100%. For me, I think like coming from a young person point of view, I think the way we're going in terms of, you know, the future, which is also coming from the OGs to the younger cats, I think the shoes that the OGs wear, like the examples that were already in there, is very vital for the younger people. And, you know, I'm lucky enough to have people like Mantra, Momo, Khalid from the Africs. They were around me when whenever I'm trying to develop something. These are people I run to say, hey, does this sound right? Does this, you know? And if that leaves, I think the younger people that are doing music and hip hop, if that element of the OGs helping out leaves, you know, I think it's going to be a bit of damage happening. So
That's actually a really good point.
so it's important for you guys to keep, you know,
Yes.
keep doing
Something that I've noticed, I guess, doing a radio show myself is when there's younger people in. One of the questions I ask is if they've been influenced or have advisors that were from a previous generation, and 99% of the time they say no, and they didn't listen to any music that came from Australia, which at one point can be understandable because it's a completely different sound. But what I think your point's really great is that having these people that have been through it for the last 20 years is really important.
100%.
Yeah, and I also think that the progress that has been made over the last, 30 years? Has been really, really phenomenal. There's been a lot of progress, a lot more inclusion than there ever was.
I would say in the last 5 years, it's astronomical.
Yeah, and even having this forum, this would never happen. A lot more people passing down knowledge. I was very fortunate to have 2 great mentors. Not a lot of people did. And yeah, I give it up to them. And if there's any information that you want as a young artist, I think that most people are pretty approachable and can pass it on. And I think for the most part, the artists are artists and they really want to be helping people. I think that sometimes the audiences get it all misconstrued. But yeah, I think for the most people want to do a good job and help people out. So yeah.
Yeah, I think of all the people that I know that have been making music for a long time, all of them are pretty happy to be in that mentoring space now. And there's people like Hal that are doing obviously a really good job, and they're all very willing and able to be
100%. And everyone's quite approachable, I reckon. Yeah.
It's good that he's in that position now with the major labels.
Yeah,
You know, he's a guy that was in a group. He knows how to make hip hop.
Yeah.
Not some used car salesman trying to tell you what to do.
I think
Got no idea.
Yeah.
It's very annoying.
Incredibly encouraging to see him in that position at Sony and being able to identify new talent and actually know what he's looking for in the genre.
It's amazing. Like hip hop turned me on to black music so hard. Like it's in my veins. Like, I mean, of course, my background is Italian, and we didn't grow up with Aretha Franklin. I mean, I could lie about all the records I had at home. My parents, no, they went to Latin music and whatever else they were into, commercial, Julio Iglesias, whatever, that sort of stuff. And it's just from day one, I just collecting those samples and loops and finding the loops and then going, I want more than the loop. I used to listen to like just the loop, like 2 bars. I mean, I'm sure these guys went through the same thing. And all of a sudden, you're liking the whole song. And then you go into that jazz song and that drummer that's on another track, and then it's just like you go down this like burrow. And it makes you appreciate your music so much. So to me, that's, it turned me on to everything. Hip-hop turned me on to everything I'm into right now. Would make me go back. And that's what I love hip-hop for.
Yeah, finding where those songs were that the samples were from.
I wouldn't know about them without it.
For sure. Something we touched on earlier was a little bit about, I guess, our earlier identities as Australians and how hip-hop, I guess, helped form your own identity. Does anyone want to touch on that? Because that's certainly something that... risky. It's certainly something that, was definitely for myself. Hip-hop always... It was like it was in my soul, it was in my blood. It was something I couldn't really explain because there wasn't anyone around me that listened to that. My parents didn't listen to it. So if anyone wanted to touch on that kind of impact, I guess.
I guess for me personally, growing up in the western suburbs of Melbourne and only having access to radio or what older siblings listened to, that kind of shaped who I was. So I was full obsessed with Michael Jackson. And if that is not a fast track into hip-hop and quality music, I don't know what is. But speaking about identity, I guess as you grow and you evolve as a person, your identity can change. And it also comes to that thing of turning a mirror onto yourself and admitting who you are, how you are, and why you are. And I think a lot of my political ideas have come from hip-hop. I think I've always been told that I have a real attitude problem. No, I don't. I just listen to hip-hop and I can't be fucked for your shit. Well, I'm not going to be here wasting my time. So that's one thing that hip-hop music has always taught me. Like in high school, it was all Bone Thugs, Biggie, and Tupac, you know. And where I grew up, you couldn't be quaint. You had to stick up for yourself a lot in the western suburbs. Kids weren't playing, you know. So I think when it comes to hip hop, one of the best things it does for people that have grown up with it, and if you look at all of us, we probably have hardly anything in common other than hip hop. But if there's one thing I can tell by all of us sitting here, is that we have we're all about integrity. There's no players here. We're telling you how we think and feel, and we're not afraid to do that, even if it offends you. And I think that's the most beautiful thing that hip hop has allowed us to become, just more into ourselves and no fear. And, you know, we're very privileged. I'm very privileged. I know hip hop didn't come from privilege, and that's important to know that. Yeah. It's important to know your privilege and know where it came from, and know that that could mean something very different to somebody else as well. And you have to allow the young people that space to express themselves and understand hip hop the way they do. And we can just be supportive.
I was going to say that I think hip hop, because the kids that got into it were all from diverse backgrounds, it actually breaks racism down. Like, that's the main thing for me. The whole thing was like, for me, it was a different story. I mean, I was really overweight as a kid, and I used to get teased a lot, and it was weird. All my friends happened to be like Anglo-Indian or, you know, different nationalities, and I got brought into that music that way through my surroundings. But I think hip hop is a tool for social change, straight up. That's what it's for, you know. And now it used to be on just in racial terms, but now it's also in terms of sexuality and other issues. People are coming out, and that's their voice. So hip hop for me is, I'm not dissing people that just want to talk about themselves. I mean, I listen to that too, but I think hip hop is a tool for social change, always has been, like KRS-One says.
I think Rizky touched on it before. There's different types of hip hop for different times. That there's the party hip hop, and then there's the conscious hip hop, and that's all okay. It's like you can listen to it at different moments.
I listen to the Ghetto Boys all day, you know.
But there'll never be another Public Enemy in this lifetime. You know that, right? In this lifetime. Never.
Totally.
They educated everyone. They educated everyone. And they made white people look at their own history, you know. They forced them, you know, and I'd be, you know, watching some show thinking, all these people are racist, all of them. And, you know, they might look like me, but I just kept, because hip hop forces you to be historical and bring you back to history. And then you're like, fuck, I'm going to tell people I'm not racist, man. I'm going to fucking tell them every second of the day just to let them know I'm not fucking down with that.
That's what I say Aussie hip hop.
Exactly.
Australian hip hop. It forces you to pay attention. It comes under all the colours.
There needs to be hip hop like that today to teaches kids, white kids, not to be racist, and also teaches kids of other colours to be proud. You know? Well,
Nah, hip hop is a religion. It's God. Like, I'm gonna be honest. Like, that's how I look at it. Like, you might not look at it like it's such a big thing, or you already do, but think about all the things that came after hip hop. Like, I'm gonna be honest. If you look close, there's a lot of things, you know. And speaking of the term itself, hip means, when you say I'm hip to something, it means you know something. And then when you hop it, is you pass it. You know what I mean? So it came from the earlier dudes that were doing it, like Public Enemy, they came from a point of view, I know about racism, I'm hip about racism, I'm hip about suppression. Now how do I hop it? They go on the mic and they hop it. The next guy who's listening to it all of a sudden has all this information just from listening to something, you know? And it's dangerous at the same time that, you know, there's a lot of things being sold with hip-hop. That's just the other side of it. But depends. There's so many options in hip-hop that whatever you're tuned to, that's what you become. You know what I mean? So when I see all of this stuff getting, I guess, blamed on hip-hop did this, hip-hop did that. Yeah, it did that, but also there's a big responsibility being played by the listener, you know what I mean? Because the listener actually dictates too what artist is coming next.
Popular.
Yeah, and so when that part was lost, when the corporation started dictating what comes out of it, a lot of the damage came from that. So the listener has the power, you know.
I feel like the bridge is broken from back then to now. It needs to be rebuilt somehow, so they can come across both ways.
I agree. Well, I feel you, but I like what you said then about like you mentioned like hip hop often gets blamed for certain things, but if we're talking about something like identity, right? Like if we're talking about the positive things that something like hip hop can do, which often don't get highlighted, definitely not in any kind of mainstream way, but we work with young people, like young emerging artists like yourself, and I work with a lot of young people, both kind of more established or emerging hip hop artists, and also just young people in education settings, or young people experiencing disadvantage, or all sorts of people in different settings. But there's been no shortage of people that I've worked with where it's like, okay, so hip hop is that kind of religion for them. Hip hop is that community that they identify with, that culture that they align with, that they naturally feel drawn to. And when you step out there and kind of say to them, "Yo, that's cool. You've got permission to be a part of this, to create and contribute to this culture." The newfound sense of identity that can give young people and can give people of any age is so powerful, because it's enough to just we know that the hardest thing you can face as a young person is not having that sense of identity and not feeling like you belong somewhere. That's a dangerous thing, no matter where you are and no matter what you look like and who you are. So, and when I found hip hop, that gave me that thing I could belong to, be a part of, contribute to, learn about, learn from, and it literally gave me everything else positive that ever happened in my life. Some way or another, my involvement with hip-hop or my involvement with music gave me every single thing that I have now that I really, really value. It gave me my closest friends. It gave me my experiences of traveling the world, traveling the country, meeting different people. It showed me what I wanted to learn about and think about and talk about. It showed me who I was as a person and what I truly, truly valued. These are things that are priceless, and you can't measure the value of those things. So and being able to work with young people and then pass that along and kind of watch these young people finding that strength, finding that identity, finding that thing that they can belong to, I know that can open up not just pathways in the music industry, it can open up pathways for your entire life. And so, they're the positive things that we can highlight about hip-hop. We can talk about that in terms of how it's influencing the culture, because to think it's just guns and money on the radios, that's fucking stupid.
Brilliant
100%.
comment. Yeah.
I just want to end on a quote by Common. Hip hop is the love of my life.
Yes.
Fantastic. I just got just going to throw it out to the audience really quickly. If anyone has a question, we've got a few minutes left. Yes. Tom.
When they die.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah,
We're trying to flip shit. We're in culture. So what are we gonna do? That's my question.
We've been doing it, and hip-hop culture and people in it have been doing it since the beginning of time. The white men run the business, and they're not dead yet. And then they hire white women that just finished a degree in marketing and music and have no idea what hip-hop or hip-hop culture is, but they all know about Alizé and Ciroc because Puff Daddy shared it on Instagram, but they don't understand the essence of our culture. So the only way we can change any industry in terms of music, arts, anything, they got to die. They got to go. That's the only thing that's going to happen, because they're not allowing us or the people that are part of the culture those opportunities or those jobs. They'll throw us a bone sometimes. Councils will sometimes give you funding. If you're like, oh, can you talk about how hip-hop saved these young kids of today? We have 20 grand to give you for a program. It's like, really? Really? Is that all we are, a moneymaker for you, even on that level where we're selling damaged children to make your money? So that question is huge, Dom, but I think we're going to be exhausted and wiped out if we keep fighting the man. So let's separate the man and let's do what we're doing and create our own industry. And now with the internet, we throw the parties, we put them on, and we share the people and put people up, because we can't fight that until it's their funeral.
Good point. Anyone else have a comment there? That's pretty much summed up the whole thing, really. So we have one more question. Oh, yes, here we go.
I just want to start by saying thank you guys for just sharing that conversation. Just to start, not that it's on behalf of anybody else here, but that was just a very, lots to absorb, and it's got me thinking about a lot of things, which is part of what I want to share right now, which is just that this has always been, for me at least, a tool to learn, a tool to grow, to build my knowledge, and hopefully turn information to knowledge, to wisdom. And what does that even mean in that journey of where that takes you, right? So everything that I've heard today has been about what we're observing, what's on the outside, but what I can't help but think right now is what does that look like from our own individual perspective as behaviors, as actions. So it actually comes all the way back down to how do you behave, how do we act differently or better, knowing what we know, knowing what we've observed. So, and through this conversation, I know this is really deep, but this is kind of the way that I think we can do something as a culture, perhaps, is learning about our behaviors and how we can hopefully do better on that. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Awesome. I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much to all of our incredible panelists and
Yo,
everyone for attending.
Just quickly,
This is
that
amazing.
was kind of aimed at as like maybe you wanted maybe like some suggestion. Was that right?
Oh, I felt like it was a comment, but yes.
Oh.
It is kind of a comment, but I guess I was hoping to hear a little bit of a response on
Sure.
on the individual behaviors that we're observing here and how we can, if there's anything, that I just said does spark anything, cool. If not, then there's no requirement of any answer. Really, just I think it comes down to self-awareness. Everyone has their standing for their own thing, and reflecting on that, and trying to be a better person in the community, and building a community at the same time. And just because you don't like something or some way someone acts doesn't mean you have to hate them or fear them. There's a massive problem there. It's like, I don't like that guy's music, I hate him. It's like, fuck that. That guy's, we don't have to be like that. We can, and that's how communities build, all different, It's like, but yeah, self-awareness, 100%. I think every day trying to think about how you can do it better, and I'll listen back to this podcast, or if it goes, and I'll listen to the things that I say, and reflect on them, and see if I still stand for them tomorrow.
Yeah, and one more thing to add to that is like everything we do must always come back to wherever we're standing. So we're on Aboriginal land. So whenever we're thinking about hip hop, we've got to think about the actual culture that exists here on this land, and always elevate that before hip hop or anything else. That's from my perspective. Yeah.
It's well said.
Any other final comments?
I think something that you mentioned before was dope. Is like if we're looking at it from a cultural, like a hip hop kind of cultural perspective, doing what you can as an individual to represent the things that you think need to be represented. So you made a good point. It's not really cool to say like, oh, I don't like that guy's music, so fuck him, and I'm not about that. So it's also not cool to say, oh man, the corporations ruined hip hop, and hip hop belongs to the big money, and there's no fresh hip hop. If you're unhappy about the way it's being represented, then it's on you to represent it in a different way. So I don't like standing there like maybe criticizing someone else who's doing hip hop in a different way to me. What I like doing is going, okay, that's not how I do it, but I got to make sure that I do it the way I do it, or else that's not being represented and being visible. And it goes for what you were saying too. It's like, if you want to see more female artists as a part of the industry, we got to do it as promoters, as organizers, and as anyone involved in the industry. We got to make that a priority. And yeah, so whoever and whatever you want to see represented, you got to make sure you're representing it yourself.
Great, what an awesome way to end. Thank you so much to all of our panellists, and thank you everyone for attending. Really, really appreciate it. I'm sure people will be sticking around if you've got any questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you.